Hello, this is Gabriel Nelson, and today I will be talking about carburetors, why they were replaced, and what replaced them. So, the primary function of a carburetor um, was they were the primary mechanism used for performing the function of air and fuel mixing that would go into the engine and basically start it and continue to keep it running. This was needed for combustion to take place, for the engine to actually break down that fuel and use it. So carburetors were initially manufactured in the early 1900s, around the time that cars were actually when the first cars began to be made. And so the carburetor worked by putting fuel and air mixture into the engine cylinders with the help of a vacuum, and it was then kick-started by the engine. The carburetors had these little tiny holes in them known as jets, and that was because these these tiny holes called jets were used to allow the air and fuel mixture to flow through. Um, the biggest problem these carburetors faced really was that when these jets got clogged up with dirt and other impurities, um, the carburetor would start malfunctioning, and you'd have to take it out and clean it over and over again, and then it would just keep happening. So it wasn't a good deal. Um, Carburetors were also really behind on poor engine performance, and this caused reduction in fuel efficiency, slower acceleration, and then reduced power. And this was basically because that air and fuel mixture, the carburetor wasn't able to get the correct air and fuel mixture needed by the engine, so it wasn't getting the optimal amount of air and fuel. It was close to what was needed, but it wasn't directly on par with what the car required for whatever task it was performing. So that led to, of course, lower fuel efficiency. You'd waste a lot of gas, um, lower, slower acceleration, and reduced power. And the reason why fuel injection replaced this was because, of course, they do the opposite of that. They provide a higher power and torque than a carbureted version of a car that has the exact same engine. And the accuracy of fuel injection, in contrast to the accuracy of carbureted engines, is that a fuel injection engine is actually capable of getting the exact amount of air and fuel sent into the engine correct. So it's the optimal amount of fuel and air needed. So you, of course, have better fuel efficiency. You'd have higher acceleration, and the car would just work much better. Um, there's also increased reliability with a fuel injection engine because of that optimum air to fuel ratio. Uh, Random engine stoppages and spark plugs being blown out of your car basically were eliminated. And I actually have a real life experience with this. My brother recently bought a 1987 Honda Civic, and it's carbureted, and you can kind of see those exact same issues where when you start the car and then you let it idle, they do not like to idle. A carbureted engine does not like to idle. It'll kick on you, and it just kind of seems like it's struggling to do that idling task as a fuel injection engine wouldn't have an issue with. So less maintenance, of course, is required because of that, and engine starting improved as well. So when you start your car in the morning, that optimum air and fuel ratio in a fuel injection engine starts it up immediately and normally right on par with what you need. Whereas a carbureted engine, it won't get that correct most times, and you'll have bad start, or in like adverse weather conditions, if it's snowing or really really cold, it's much harder to get a carbureted engine to start up than it is a fuel injected engine. Thank you.